We ready to start? I'm going to wait. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Albany Unified School District Board of Education. Today is November 18th, and we're calling to order at 6:01. And could we get a roll call, please?
Student Trustee Chodak?
Here.
Student Trustee Shepard? Here. Trustee Boyd?
Here.
Trustee Inglis?
Here.
Trustee Khan?
Here.
Vice President Mahoney?
Here.
President Hopwood?
Yeah.
Superintendent Stone?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now our student trustees will read our mission statement and meeting norms.
The mission of Albany Unified School District is to provide excellent public education that empowers all to achieve their fullest potential as productive citizens. AUSD is committed to creating comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment, addressing the individual needs of each student.
Meeting norms. Maintain a focus on what is best for our students. Ensure a safe environment for all views to be expressed, treating each other, staff, and the public respectfully. Endeavor to find common solutions to issues through collaboration without sacrificing one's beliefs in what is best for students, and make a commitment to effective deliberation, each one listening with an open mind while others are allowed to express their own points of view even if one disagrees.
Thank you both. And now we are going to move on to item C, which is the approval of the meeting agenda. And I just want to make one adjustment to that, which is that we're going to pull the B part of the consent calendar. So I'll mention that again when we get to the consent calendar. But any other changes to make to the agenda or any comments about that? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda with the changes. Second.
Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. And now we're moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance, which Vice President Mahoney will lead. Thank you. And now we are moving to item 2, recognitions and staff recognition. Superintendent Stone will lead us on this.
Thank you, President Hopwood. So tonight I am excited to, for the second board meeting in a row, be able to recognize some staff who work above and beyond hard every single day in service of our students and our staff and our community. And these are staff that were recognized by their colleagues and peers. And I do want to highlight that I do know that each and every staff member in our district is incredible and works hard and tirelessly. I think what's exciting about this is that it's staff members nominating one another and just highlighting some of the great work that they do. So tonight I'm very honored to be able, I'll start with our amazing custodian who's on Zoom, Nick Williams. He works at AMS. I have told him myself, and I think people might notice, I'm always seeing him working extremely hard, making things as clean as they possibly can be, and taking really good care of the middle school. I also notice that he is engaging and warm and caring with students, and that is really what he was highlighted for. And he was actually nominated by multiple different people. So I just want to appreciate, and if we could just give him a round of applause for the hard work that he does every day. And also, can I have Professora Lynn McAllister, sorry, Lynn McAllister, come and step up to the podium if possible. Is that okay there or there? You go over there. Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you. So again, multiple different people nominated. our incredible teacher, Professor McAllister, who is really just incredible in terms of supporting students, making sure students are multilingual, and really, I think, goes above and beyond, again, just to recognize students and their excellence. And so that level of care and support really shows the excellence that we have in our community. And so I'm really pleased that you're here tonight and you're able to receive this tonight. So if we could give a round of applause. And I don't know if either one of you just want to say anything to our board or to the people who are out there in the audience.
Let Nick go first.
Nick, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. I just want to thank the community, the kids, and the teachers, and just want to, thank my supervisors and the people I work with. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those guys, and I really appreciate everybody, everybody that I come in contact, and I'm really happy to be working for Albany Unified School District.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hard act to follow. Congratulations, Nick. Okay, as you guys know, most people know me as Profe, and I'm in my 22nd year here.
Wow.
And this is an amazing honor because it's my colleagues who nominated me. And I want to thank everybody in the whole district. You guys are the best. I've been in a number of places, universities, community college, private sector, and I've been here for 22 years because I love Albany, I love my colleagues, I love my kids. I got Mackenzie over there, I got Kunsal, I had President Hopwood's 3 kids, and you guys are just the absolute best, and I am honored and touched, especially because I was nominated by colleagues, and that means so much. And, to get to be here, I share this award with them because every single person, I know for sure at Albany and in the district, everyone's got something special and spectacular about them. And we are definitely, one of the best places to teach and be. And I'm going to share with you, I participate, I encourage kids to do all sorts of stuff, and I did the Albany, fall into haiku. One of mine got picked, and I haven't found out from Dexter, so they're going to get posted at Thanksgiving. So one of mine was about Albany. I don't know which one got picked, but it was wonderful students, community and colleagues. I didn't memorize it. I should have brought my phone. Anyway, wonderful students, community, and colleagues. Red, white, go Cougars. So, yay. Thank you guys again so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And I just really want to echo what you said, that everyone brings something special to this community, and I really appreciate colleagues honoring one another, so thank you. We do have a little award for both of you. Unfortunately, it's a little bit lost in the mail, but I do have a version of it to hand to you tonight, but you're going to get a different one, okay? So I'll hand it to you, and then we'll give you the correct one later. But thank you so much for coming tonight and being here for this.
Yeah, don't worry. Okay, and while the superintendent is doing that, we're going to move on to our public comment period. So if you have public comment... So public comment. So if you'd like to make public comment for items not on the agenda, please approach the podium, and you have 2 minutes.
I'm not sure if you guys remember me, but I came to the last board meeting to advocate for Palestine, and I'm here to do so again to show my support. I urge you guys to keep Palestine in your minds and hearts when we discuss how we should talk about hard topics at school. I'm here in support with my friends Izzy, Serena, and Ale. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Isabella, and I came to the last board meeting to advocate for teaching Palestine. I will keep showing up until change is made. We all will. Since the last board meeting, no progress has been made in regards to the Parseo training, and it seems like nobody even cares about what we have to say. We are asking for change because we feel unsafe and unrepresented at school. Nobody has done anything to help support students who are struggling or confused about Palestine and Israel. The least that can be done is for teachers to be able to educate about it without fear of backlash or being fired from their jobs. And this isn't a stretch. We all remember a teacher we held so dear being fired for student members of her club saying the club supports a free Palestine. This shows absolute cowardice and fear from the administrators that made that decision. What message did that show to the whole school? That there are consequences for speaking your mind about Palestine. School is an environment of fear and silence. It isn't our job to fix it. We are doing all that we can for change, and that needs to happen. You are the adults here. The responsibility shouldn't fall on us. Educate students, teach about Palestine. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you.
Can you hear me this way? Okay. While our students wait for our school district to determine how to teach, to train our teachers to teach the so-called hot topics in our curriculum, though not all hot topics, because we already teach African American history, we already teach indigenous people's history, but not Palestine history, or what our students are most interested in, the current events of that region. So while we're waiting, I'm going to use this roughly 2 minutes I have been here to teach Palestine. I'm going to start very simply. Palestine, a region between Phoenicia and Egypt, writes Herodotus, a 5th century BCE historian, about 2,500 years ago. The people who have lived in this region for centuries, regardless of their ethnicity, race, religion, or what Ben-Gvir says, are the indigenous people of Palestine, in other words, the Palestinians. And if you want to learn more about this, as it happens, Kensington Library is currently hosting a 2-month exhibit showcasing the culture, heritage, cuisine, and more of the indigenous people of Palestine. I hope all of you will get the chance to visit it. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Any more in-person comments on matters not on the agenda? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm John Paulding, Mr. Johnny, as the kids know me by, campus supervisor at the high school. And I just came up here to say thank you to Dr. Stone for the wonderful jackets that she got us as, it helps. It helps. And Ms. Wu for getting us transportation to get around. That was very great, and it was a surprise it got here so fast. Thank you. And our wonderful principal, Mr. McNally, he's getting us some other jackets that's not, well, this is a rain jacket, but then there's other jackets, you know, to keep us warm for being out there. So I just wanted to tell you on behalf of the security staff, we thank you a lot, and we appreciate it. We really do. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Do we have any more in-person commenters? Because I've got one online. Go ahead. You can, no, you're okay. Take your time.
Yeah. It's getting better. I don't have any official prepared statements, but I wanted to thank the board for the discussion last month. It was great, and I think it was a lot of progress there. It's Indigenous Peoples Month, or Indigenous Heritage Month, and I'm proud of the way that AUSD is putting that forward, and I want to learn more and more from our students about what's happening in their classrooms. There are a lot of connections between the Indigenous community and the Palestinian community as well, in terms of land displacement, forced erasure, historical erasure, genocide. And I'm hoping that during this month, like every month for the last 2 years and more, that we can think about those connections and how we want to talk to them with our friends and our families and our students. We are still requiring a great deal of bravery from you and from our teachers. Our teachers are still afraid, and they still need explicit support from the district and administrators that they are allowed to discuss these things and there won't be retribution for it. As at the end of the day, we have still failed to provide our students with the opportunities and the means and the space and information in which they can talk about these things respectfully and in safety. So, 30 seconds left. But yeah, thank you all. There's a couple policy things coming up that I want to keep a close eye on. We talked about them a bit in the last meeting, but I want to make sure that we're still making space for people to, especially guest speakers, to be able to come in, provide education, do so respectfully, and to be respected versus being restricted. So there's language in upcoming policy that I'm concerned about, and thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks for all your comments. And we have one person. Oh, one more in person? Okay, I'm sorry. Approach the podium, and virtual speaker, I'll get to you as soon as possible.
I'd like to emphasize and reiterate what the kids brought out last week and remind everybody. They were calling for facts. They would like to know the facts. They want their teachers to be able to teach them the facts. And it sounds sort of straightforward, but somehow facts are very, even facts are controversial. Let me give you just one example of a fact that is out there, and that is that the International Court of Justice on January 26, 2024, ordered Israel, in accordance with their obligations under the Convention for the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, in relation to the Palestinians in Gaza, to prevent the commission of all acts killing members of the group, causing serious bodily harm, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions calculated to bring about its physical destruction, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. This all comes from the Genocide Convention. It was voted, each of these elements of this set of orders was voted on by the court. The court was 17 members. It was voted on 15-2, an overwhelming majority. One of those judges voting against was an Israeli judge who was on the court. The State of Israel was also ordered to take all measures within its power to prevent and punish the direct and public incitement to commit genocide by Israelis, especially the Israeli government leaders, in relation to members of the Palestinian group, another aspect of the Genocide Convention. There were 4 other areas that were all voted on independently, all with an overwhelming majority of the judges. Just last point, these are facts. If one student or one parent says their student feels uncomfortable, is that the criteria will be used to engage facts or eliminate them from discussion? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody else here in person have public comment? I'm not seeing any, so we're now going to move on to our virtual commenter. You can go ahead.
Good evening, Board. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to first thank you, the board, and Superintendent Stone for reinstating the Zoom attendance and comment option that opens the door for a whole lot of people who are unable for different reasons to attend in person. And I appreciate that you listened to the community feedback and that you have brought back this option. And while I'm here, and I cannot see the timer for some reason, I wanted to add to the district's recognition of first Mr. Nick. Not only is he welcoming and engaging with all the students and staff at AMS, but also to parents and caregivers who might be there as guests every so often. And so we're very appreciative of that. And also Mr. John, who I'm just saw there speaking, who sometimes plays a guest security role at AMS, making sure that no one gets run over in the rush of the morning. And to him, in particular, I want to say that I hope he's enjoying the high of the Dodger victory, hard won over the World Series. And we'll see him next year against the Giants. Thank you.
Great, thanks for all your comments. And as Neri mentioned, you will have noticed that we reinstated our our Zoom comments. And we do really appreciate all of you who are here this evening as well. We have found the last few meetings where we've had a much bigger audience due to not having the Zoom facility. It's made such a difference to engagement. So we appreciate those of you who are able to make it in person. Thank you. Right. We will now move on to our reports, and we're starting with the student board members.
Okay. Leadership is hosting gratitude grams. Students buy grams for friends and classmates, and this is a fundraising event for leadership to fund prom and other school events such as like homecoming. And this is a fun school spirit event, and also it's also just for all students as leadership kids dress up in turkey costumes and go to classrooms and sing and hand out grams. So it's just a good like community building event that we're hosting.
Additionally, the 4-day weekend schedule was quite popular among students. We saw that was, I mean, not just students, I'm sure staff would also like the extension for well. But yeah, we just wanted to say that it was very popular, and we're happy that it seems to be well received, and we're looking forward to it next year.
Now we have our Labour partners. If you have any reports.
Hi, just 3 quick things from ATA. First was elementary teachers are in the middle of fall conferences where they meet with each family to share insights into their students' progress. Between assessing, preparing report cards, and scheduling, many hours outside the regular school day go into these meetings. Additionally, ATA has held actions at all school sites this past week showing solidarity and raising awareness about our top priorities in bargaining, fully staffing our schools, improving educator pay, and providing stability for students and communities. And then lastly, to piggyback on that public comment, a lot of ATA members have childcare responsibilities, and we're all committed to accessibility, so we're really thankful the virtual option for public comments has returned. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And now we have our superintendent report.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to. All right. So tonight I wanted to just highlight some of the things that I've heard loud and clear from our community, and some of the work that I'm really committed to in the district. One of those being listening. I love this quote by Shane Saphir that listening helps us unlock creative thinking and empower the least empowered members of our communities. And I think even tonight, just having our students come and share their perspectives, listening to students specifically, but also hearing from staff members who work with students each and every day, and our families and our community partners is so important. And really at the core of this is making the best possible school district that we can for our students to be successful. So over the last couple of weeks, there's been an offering of what we're calling the General Impression Survey. It was in the community update the last 2 Fridays. It is still open to this day. Tonight during the vital signs presentation, we're going to report out just on the current data that we have from it. And I wanted to take a little bit of an opportunity to give some information now in my report as well. So far, we've had 143 respondents, most of them families, the next highest students, and then staff and community members, about the same number of staff and community members. Overall, there was a strong sense of belonging, praise for staff, and feeling like communication has improved somewhat. But there's still areas of strength that we need to focus on. Part of that is clarity in communication. I would say timeliness as well. Making sure that we're really challenging our students academically and especially in mathematics. Continuing to support mental health, equity, and keeping our facilities clean and well maintained. What the community told us is pretty consistent with my listening campaign last year. The strengths, that this is a caring community where there ultimately, for the most part, is a really strong sense of belonging, safety, and inclusion. Very, very high marks for our strong teachers, and again, feeling like communication overall is improving. There's definitely better. We can do better. More clarity on initiatives and changes, being predictable in terms of communication, and the math came up quite a bit. So we do know that this is something that we're going to be moving towards working on, and we are already in the process of that. Additional themes that came up, again, mental health, academic challenge, diverse staffing, ensuring that our staff actually reflect our students and the people that we serve, and really excited about some facility upgrades with our facility master planning. So again, our priorities this year, we have 3 very big buckets. And today, during the vital signs presentation and during our differentiated learning / win time presentation, we're going to go deeper into some of these. But these three big priorities, equitable and inclusive instruction, student belonging, and collaborative systems, are really at the core of the work that I am leading across the district and the work that's ultimately hitting the needs of our students. So some next steps. One of the things that I think came through loud and clear in those, under 200 surveys, but still very loud and clear, is that we need to do a better job of sharing things in a family-friendly fashion. So when we're sharing information, making sure that it is not jargony, that it's not educationese, which I've joked with many of my educator friends that I could literally have an entire conversation just using acronyms, and we would completely understand each other and no one else would. So we need to do better with that. And really explaining the why behind what we're doing and how we're going to measure success. Also, we are already in the process of this, but we have a K-12 math vision team. We're really looking at overall, in order for us to improve our math pathway from TK or PK all the way up to post-secondary, we do have to have a very clear vision. And it might feel a little frustrating that we're going a little slow to create a vision, but we need a vision that we can all really agree on. And so we have a really representative body who's working on that with our teaching and learning department. We also are focused, continuing to focus on figuring out ways to increase mental health supports for our students and that sense of belonging. And we have some things in the works. I'm excited about some of the recruitment efforts and retention efforts that we're putting in place with our human resources department, specifically around strategies for hiring and retaining diverse, high-quality staff. And as I mentioned before, our facilities master plan is really about us figuring out how we're going to upgrade our facilities. And students in the survey specifically talked about wanting more voice and choice in food. And so we're going to keep having conversations about that. with students. So one of the things that I have been doing, this has been probably the best thing I've ever done in all of my years of being a district leader. I have been spending week-long periods of time, actually more like 4 days at a time, in schools. I started with Albany Middle School. It was amazing. Got to spend a ton of time with our incredible principal and going into classrooms and seeing what's going on and talking to kids, talking to staff. And it was just a really good, authentic way for me to understand what's happening. I then was able to spend some time at Cornell and at the high school. I was there. This week, I'm at Ocean View, and then after the break, I'm going to be spending some time in Marin and then at Albany Children's Center. The goal of this is really for me to strengthen relationships and build trust. I have to say, like, it really is. If I'm around students, I am absolutely reminded why I do what I do. And so for me, this is something that originally I had planned on just doing kind of the one time, like doing this for a 5-week period and then saying, okay, I kind of have a better sense. I'm actually now committed to doing this each quarter. I think being at the school and making the school my office, it's not that I'm necessarily stopping my work, it's just I'm doing my work from the school. And that's where the game is. You don't see a coach in their office coaching, Steve Kerr's not in his office coaching the Warriors. He's right there, down with them. So I think it's really important that I'm there. And I think for me, again, this is why I do what I do. And again, just some highlights. I'm not going to go through each and every bullet, but really, truly, when people say that Albany is an incredible school district and they want to come and bring their kids here, there's a reason. I see joyful, engaging learning. I've seen it across the board in all of the 4 schools that I've spent targeted time in. I know I'm going to see it in the other spaces as well. And I have been visiting schools since I've been here, so it's not that I haven't seen this. Belonging and relationships, I'm overwhelmed by the warmth and care that students show each other, especially at the high school. I am like blown away by the kindness and the support and positivity there. Teacher strengths and thoughtful practice, really intentional. I think our ATA partner mentioned how hard they work after school just to think about what they're going to do for their parent-teacher conferences. That is no different on a day-to-day basis. You see the care that they put into their work. And just overall, really strong school cultures. So I'm feeling very, very proud and very hopeful about what we're doing and how we're continuing to move in the right direction for all of our students. And I just wanted to name that my core commitments are going to continue to be around strengthening instruction, equity, and student success, a sense of belonging, wellness, and partnerships, and ultimately building that trust, being transparent, and improving operations so that we just have excellent, well-run schools that are clean and beautiful each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will have our board committee updates. Does anybody on the board have from their respective committees? Go ahead, Trustee Khan.
See, I had wrapped it into my actual report, but the Special Education Committee met last week. It feels like a lifetime ago. It was a wonderful and very productive meeting, just talking about, all of the things that we're already doing, areas where we can improve on, and just future events that we'd love to see our community do. This November 29th marks the 50th anniversary of when President Ford signed what is now known as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And so we're trying to brainstorm and plan around how we can honor what has already been done, but also how we can continue to preserve and protect what our students need. And so I really want to appreciate Dr. Brian Biggs and Gabe. I forget how to pronounce his last name. Vulture. But they've been doing a really wonderful job with training our paras, with, just all of the incredible things that they're doing. Obviously, there are things that are outside of our control, like, not being able to, there not being enough qualified folks to take on some of the jobs we need. However, they've done a great job in recruiting more folks. I know we hired some folks at Ocean View. and other sites have also gotten some more support. I'm forgetting all the exact details, but it was just a really, really uplifting meeting, and I want to give them kudos for that.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I attended the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee last week. We reviewed the unaudited actuals for measures B and E, which are some of the former bonds we had. Measure L is still going through the process of getting approved. It looks like we've got a couple of vacancies that will be filled, so we're excited about that. They'll be approved, I think, by the board next month, assuming they come through. We still have 2 openings. We've got a business community representative, and I believe 1 more at-large representative that we're also looking for. So if you'd like to contribute, it's a great way to kind of see what's going on with the district. And then at the beginning of the month, I also attended the Technology Master Planning Committee with parents, teachers, students, and administrators across the district. We're all helping to pull together the master plan for technology, aiming to be done at the end of the school year for board approval. And at this point, we've divided into subcommittees, divide and conquer, and putting together an initial draft.
Thank you. And Trustee Inglis and I are both on the Board Policy Committee. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago and approved some updated policies which we're bringing today under consent. And we have a couple of policies that have been referred to earlier in the meeting that we are spending particular time and attention on. So we haven't forgotten, as you mentioned, Anna, the policies that we've been discussing. We have been discussing those in Board Policy Committee as well, and we will bring those to the board when they are ready to be published, so to speak. But we're spending particular time and care on certain policies. And now we will move on to our board member report. Yes, Trustee Boyd.
Hello. I'll just share a few fabulous things from Albany Middle School. Last month now, it's been a while since our last do it. She's a cool kid. And
mine's not quite as exciting. The Albany PTSA is starting their graduation committee for the graduating class of 2026. So if you are interested, especially if you don't have a student graduating, because they always need extra help, you can go onto their website and find their link. And additionally, they're working on the prom closet, which allows people to donate dresses, suits, shoes, anything that's in decent shape that you aren't using, so kids can come in there and borrow them for the event. Again, you can find information about that on the website. And then the Instructional Improvement Council Committee met for the first time this year, and nothing exciting happened, but we're starting our meetings. Thank you.
Okay, so it's been a really busy couple of weeks. I had a AHS high school walkthrough with Superintendent Stone, which was lovely. And I got to check out some spaces that I haven't had a chance to do before, so that was really wonderful. We also got to meet with Mr. Kaysen and just finally see the space for myself. I've only ever walked past it because it's always so busy, but it was lovely to just check in and check out the space. And then we had a really wonderful parent education night hosted at Marin by all 3 elementary PTAs around special education. We had nearly 30 participants, and it was just really well attended. Lots of great energy and lots of learning, and a lot of feedback around parents wanting more. And so we're hoping to continue working with the Special Education Committee to make more happen. We also, for the first time ever, I helped host a Diwali event and learned so much about the actual event in the process of hosting this. We had over 100 attendees, and it was just a really wonderful celebration to bring so many people together, learn something new, and just have fun with our kids. Additionally, there's a number of events happening with our PTA. This Thursday, there's actually going to be a Semi Freddy's bread donation with over, it's nearly 300 items that they're donating to us in response to the SNAP cuts. Obviously, SNAP has already been reinstated, but this was still something that our community felt needed to be done to make sure we're supporting all of our families. So drop by after school this Thursday if that is something that you may need. And then we also have our PTA meeting at the library this Thursday, the 20th at 6 p.m. We are currently looking for someone to take over the Otter Pop sales. It's something I can no longer do. It just really conflicts with my work schedule. I would love to be everywhere, but I can't. And we're also forming some committees and trying to put together more events for our community to join in on. So it would be great to have more volunteers. Lastly, I think this is probably the one announcement people have been dying to hear, which is our fall festival. First, I want to thank Principal Delgado, Superintendent Stone, Vice President Mahoney, Mayor Lopez for being willing, and myself for being willing to have pies thrown at us. A couple of kids got some really good shots on me. And our fall festival and walkathon together raised over $50,000, which is incredible. We've never, ever hit this goal before. And so we're just extremely proud of everyone that worked to make this possible, and for our lovely volunteers who are willing to take some pies to the face for this. So thank you, everyone, for making that possible.
Thanks for inviting me. Pie in the face. Hey, for a good cause, I'm always willing to do it. Visited Marin Morning earlier this month. Even though it's raining, it's amazing to see the kids running around in circles, doing their dance, singing dance sort of thing, as watching the littles as everybody kind of crowded into the multi-purpose room was great to see. Attend the Marin PTA meeting as well. I will call out that the Marin PTA has a goal of 125 families as members, and most importantly, why do you care about that? Forget about the money. If you get 125 kids, every kid gets a popsicle, and we know what that motivation means. So be a good parent and get a popsicle for your kid. I also attended a great walkthrough with Director Reed and Superintendent Stone over at the Albany Children's Center as well. So always good to see that facility and the incredible work that really goes on there. And then on October 24th, I was able to attend the State of Our Schools in Albany County event put on by the Alameda County Board of Education. I was joined by the superintendent as well as ATA leadership as well. And one of the things I learned at the event is that there are only 2 districts in the county where the school district lines and the city lines match. Of course, Albany is one of those. And it brought home for me the importance of community and education. So how we work together as the City of Albany, how we treat each other is critical not only for the harmony in our city, but in providing an educational community where differences can be discussed respectfully and with curiosity, where we can take care of our most vulnerable, and we don't view things as a zero-sum game, but hopefully as a series of rising tides that raise all boats.
Thank you. I'll second Trustee Boyd's review of the Albany Middle School Craft Fair. As usual, it was quite a sight, and it's so impressive how many talents people in our community have other than their regular day jobs. They've got these hidden artistic or musical or general crafting talents, so really appreciated being able to go to that. Had a walkthrough today at Ocean View School with Superintendent Stone, so that was a treat. And a few Cornell-specific events. They're doing an Alameda County Community Food Bank drive at the moment. There are tubs to fill at Cornell School. So if you have anything to donate through December, please drop those off. There is Coffee with Kat, the principal, this coming Friday. Obviously, all the elementaries are on conference schedule until Friday also. And I think that is probably everything from me. So thank you. No other. Oh, I would say, though, thank you, Trustee Khan, for the amazing Ocean View Fall Festival, and well done for that incredible amount of money raised. I popped in, and it wasn't the most beautiful weather, but it wasn't actually raining, which was huge, but just so great to see how many people turned out for that. It was impressive.
The funny thing is it rained quite a bit during, right when we started, so we were terrified, but people still showed up. They still did the walkathon. Kids were so excited. We had, I want to say, nearly 200 plus students that walked, and the lowest laps were at least 10 laps each. So it was really incredible to just see the energy there.
Amazing. Well, thank you for all of your work on that. So now we are going to move on to the staff report section of the meeting, and we have Director Brill with an update on our proposed allergy plan.
All right. Good evening, President Hopwood, Vice President Mahoney, Board Trustees, Superintendent Stone, staff, and community. I'm Executive Director of Student Services, Deb Brill, and I was here earlier this year talking about the process we've been going through related to our allergy plan, and I'm here tonight to update you on where we are and hopefully kind of moving towards just sort of settling in with where we're going to be with this, at least for the foreseeable future. So first of all, we have a board policy and administrative regulation that's related to our allergy plan and been working to update that. We had a robust conversation about that at our last board policy meeting, board policy committee meeting, and we'll be bringing that back in February. But wanted to have a chance to present to the board and to the community where we are with it at this point, with the idea that feedback is still invited and welcome as we're working to kind of finalize pieces. As always, with the community, there's a diverse set of needs and opinions and perspectives, and so I think what I've been attempting to do in this part of the process is to hear all of the different voices and give space for all of the different voices and find a balance that will work well for our community. So this first part is really codifying safeguards that have pretty much been in place already. It's not anything crazy and brand new, but it's also not something that's been clear and consistent, nor has it been written anywhere for a lot of these pieces. And so really wanting to solidify the work that we do to protect our students with life-threatening allergies. There's a FAIR template, okay, hold on. The acronym just jumped right out of my head. Does anybody know? Okay, I'll come back to it. I do have it on another slide. But FAIR is the leading food allergy group in our country that gives guidance on how to protect with life-threatening allergies. And they also have come up with, they have a subgroup, FAMS, which presents on related to schools in particular. Food allergy management for schools, I think is what FAMS is. And so what FAIR has is it has a really clear template where you can write on exactly what the student's allergy is and the picture of them, what you do, what they're, whether they have an EpiPen, and it's a nice, it's a really clear visual that can be in substitute folders. It goes all the way TK through 12. So that's something that we have been using and are just again codifying. EpiPen and medication management, again, is something that we already have in place. In recent years, we have been able to have stock EpiPens as soon as that became available. So a lot of times for students who have life-threatening allergies, they don't know. And oftentimes they have their first incident at school. So that's why it's important to have these stock EpiPens available. So if a student has an allergic reaction, we have staff who are trained in medication available. We have created a clear system now for how we search for students and generate a list of students and share that information so that key staff members are aware of all the students in the school who have life-threatening allergies so that we're more likely to be able to identify a reaction and respond accordingly. We added a piece this year asking our amazing librarians, TK6, to include one book a year that talks about allergies, with the idea that there's a lot of research information out there about students with allergies also kind of being a target in terms of bullying and exclusion. And we want to really do our part with all the ways we want to include students, with making sure we're educating and giving students tools for understanding what life-threatening allergies are. And then when we have classroom lessons and celebrations, we're asking for any known allergens of students in that classroom to not be included in those. So if it's an event that food's being brought into and we have a student in the class who has a particular allergy, then that allergen is not permitted. Art projects, science projects, all of that. And so those were the items that were formalized, that were more or less already in place, except for the book talk part. And then we added this year having no nuts on campus, which we're not the only school district to do that, but we kind of have formalized it because there's such a predominance of nut allergies. That is it for what is impacting us during the school day. At our last meeting, we had a big discussion about what about the community piece, and there were some people who had spoke about, like PTA leaders who had spoke about their interest in participating in designing that process. So we had a meeting, and I met I invited all of the PTA presidents within an option for them to send other representatives, affinity group leaders, as well as any other parent or guardian who's interested. We had a really nice mix of people who attended, and as well as a few parents of students who have life-threatening allergies. It was a great chance to sort of exchange ideas across the board and just explore ways that we can keep our kids safe, while also maintaining the joy of our community events that have food. I sent that plan out after we had developed it, and then and then gave people a chance to comment. Some people who weren't able to make it were able to comment through that process, and then developed a plan to integrate as much feedback as possible. And again, there's conflicting feedback, so kind of doing my best to balance what I thought people needed for kids to be safe, but also how to maintain that ability to have food-related events. And so the proposal that we kind of narrowed it down to is kind of in two buckets: the things that we're asking to do, and then the things that we're saying, these are good practices if you can. So one is to provide bake sale cards on cardstock that the district would provide, and we would ask event managers, as well as for high school, if bake sales were happening, we would provide those cards and ask that those be utilized. And I'll show an example of one on the next screen, but it gives a chance to check from the FDA main allergens, as well as to comment on some other pieces. There was an ask. There was a wide range of things that were asked, including like, could all potluck items be signed up for ahead of time, which felt not realistic because we know a lot of times people are like the day of being like, oh, what am I going to grab, and they don't know ahead of time. But with the hope that at least an event organizer, if they are providing the food, like we're going to have a pizza party, to be able to a week in advance say, we're providing pizza. And then asking for our AUSD, our amazing custodial staff, to please wipe down the tables ahead of time for an event, just again in case any allergens were on those tables prior to the event. And then, when possible, having one of the wonderful suggestions that one of our PTA leaders had was to have an access coordinator designated, like just one of the volunteers being like, you're in charge of access, and giving them a couple of roles, one of them being encouraging hand washing prior to students eating, which also helps with cross-contamination, ensuring there's one dinner and one dessert option that are gluten-free, egg-free, and vegan. Could be all the same thing, or could be a few different items. Could designate an access coordinator to be responsible for that, as well as to be responsible for like making sure the food placement, things are separated, and that serving utensils are not cross-contaminated. Also, there could be an invitation that was suggested for the event organizer or access coordinator for anyone who has a student with a food allergen, if they want to talk about it ahead of time, about anything that would help make it more comfortable. And could also provide a list of safe foods if they want to do that. So those were suggestions of things that were possible, and I think it's just another piece for people to keep in mind when they can make it work. And then the group drafted some language that the PTA or an affinity group could send out to let people know about what's happening at the event. So I thought it was great they worked on that in that group. And then also food allergy research and education, FAIR. We got back to it. So that was that one. And then, yes, food allergy management in schools was the other one. So those are some great resources. Here's a draft that I came up with of the card that people, that we kind of workshopped. And again, the known allergens are the 9 main FDA life-threatening allergens. Also, people suggested having a spot to check, is it vegan or vegetarian? And then you could also have a line for, halal, kosher, anything else that your dish meets the needs of, and then listing ingredients. And then my final slide, I just wanted to kind of close with sharing that, while I did my best to kind of wrap in as much feedback as possible, I wanted to share 3 of the main kind of highlights of different types of feedback I've received in this process. One is just a belief that either there should be no food in the classroom at all, or that for students who have life-threatening allergies in the classroom, that their classroom should have no food in it, meaning not having any food-related celebrations, to do celebrations in other ways. FAMS recommends, when possible, discourage eating in the classroom. If eating is necessary, designate an area for eating that's separate from learning spaces, especially for younger children. I think one of the things we've really talked a lot about in this process is the difference between a 5-year-old and a high schooler's ability to navigate and manage exposure to allergens. And I will say we've had 2 EpiPen administrations at the high school in the last 2 weeks. So, even when we do our best, and even with high schoolers at the maturity that they are, it's still, these things can still happen. And so we obviously want to be doing our due diligence as best we can to keep everyone safe. I also received some feedback about just that having no nuts is particularly hard on students who are recovering from eating disorders, which is 6 to 8% of students nationally, because nuts provide a high nutritional value and they're packed into smaller portions, making it easy to get that in. So that was one piece of feedback that I received from a couple of different people. And then just in this process that is in line with what we're doing, but I wanted to state, I especially got this from teaching staff, just that food in the classroom feels really important to quite a number of teachers for the rich cultural experiences and celebrations that are filled with joy that they integrate into their curriculum, while of course they also want to be mindful and do it in a way that students are protected. So those were kind of the main pieces of feedback that I got along the way. So my proposal in terms of next steps is to continue to invite any feedback that people have over the next few weeks. And then I'm going to bring the policy and AR back to our board policy committee in February. So any comments or questions?
Any questions from the board? First of all, I'll just thank you so much for all of the work you've put into this, and particularly for engaging so many different groups in the community. I think that's been helpful. And yeah, any questions from the board before we move to public comment?
Yes, I have just one. Thank you also for gathering all the information and for bringing so many people together. On the slide, community guidelines, what to do at each event, the second bullet, I feel needs to be rewritten or maybe moved to optional, and that's the one that reads, publish the menu a week in advance for items that the event organizers plan to purchase. Your example that you gave is something that I think is doable, but the way that it reads feels much more daunting than I think somebody might interpret it, and therefore not doable. But also putting a time frame of a week on a PTA president or another event coordinator also may not be feasible. So I just don't want to have stuff in here that is due at the event if we know in advance it could fail half the time. So we might want to consider moving that to the optional, which is the next section. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board? And student trustees, do you have any questions? We're going to move to discussion in a minute too, but we'll just do questions for now.
Yeah, so for ensure there's one dinner and one dessert option that is gluten-free, egg-free, and vegan. This is referring to like PTA events only, or is this like all school events? Sorry.
Like community events, like PTA events or affinity group events, things where parents are coming and bringing their children.
Okay, so this isn't relating to like, for example, like student-run like bake sales or anything? Okay, yeah.
No, not at all. Yeah, I think it's more picturing like you have like an elementary potluck, and then you have a kid who, can't eat eggs, and there's no dessert for them, and everyone else is getting dessert and trying to avoid that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay, so actually we are not taking public comment. This is a staff report rather than an action item. So we will there's no more questions. We can move on, and we will be revisiting this topic at length as we continue to craft the plan. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Great, so we are going to move on now to review and action items. We have our school year calendar. And that'll be Marina Gonzalez.
Good evening. All right, this is exciting news. Finally, we're going to have a 26-27 school calendar for folks to be able to start planning. So this calendar, the process that we follow, because the school calendar really becomes the work calendar for our teachers and for some of our classified staff who work just those days. And so, we have to bargain it. And so we get together as a committee with a couple of representatives from each of the union groups. And we talk about what worked with the current year calendar, or, what would we like to see different? What's coming up for us? and then we draft proposals, and they take it to their respective membership groups, and then those groups do like a kind of like a vote, stating their preference, and then I come back and I present those proposals and the results of those of the feedback to the board to do a final approval. Okay, so on these proposals, if we could just show like proposal number 1. And it's a little bit slow. Okay, so I want to go through some of the history of the calendar and why it is where it is right now. You'll notice that we are now starting school in the second week of August. When my kids, way back when my kids were in school, we started the last week of August. And about 5 years ago, there was a huge calendar committee that got together, and really the priority was moving the calendar up to an earlier start so that the high school semester would break by the winter break, so that kids could have a true break. That was the goal there. And so that's what we did. And so now the semester breaks in December. And the semesters are a little bit lopsided, but because we have a lot of testing in the spring, it kind of balances out in terms of the courses. And so, but then what happened is we started noticing, wow, we're starting so much earlier, folks are getting like really tired. And so historically, on Indigenous Peoples Day, that would be a non-student day, but it would be a staff development day. And so staff still had to work. And so this year, we moved that staff development day to September, but we still observed Indigenous Peoples Day. And let's see, I think that might be all I want to say about those sort of like that sort of area of the calendar. So this year's committee, when we were talking, folks were saying, you know what, it's really long stretch until we get to Thanksgiving. And so we explored the idea of adding a day to the Indigenous Peoples Day weekend and creating like a 4-day week or 4-day weekend versus just having one day, just having a 3-day weekend. And so those two proposals went out, and by far the 4-day one with the 4-day weekend was the one that most preferred. If we scroll up, or sorry, back up to like the backup stuff. We can see the results. We also sent out a survey to parents and guardians. That was a little bit closer, but with students, you can see that students overwhelmingly preferred this schedule. And I appreciated, I'm not a student, but I appreciated a comment that one of the students left. And they said, this is great for juniors who are taking AP courses and are trying to adjust to that sort of load. And it's also good for seniors who are applying to college to have that time to focus on that. And so I thought that was very thoughtful. So I think now it's up to you to decide if you have any questions for me.
Any questions, students? First.
The survey that got sent out for the students to actually like put an input about which calendar they would like was definitely something like students appreciated, I would say, because we haven't like really had a say in like the calendar before, but it was really obvious that we wanted a fall break and we feel like we need it, so it was great that we had that input.
Yeah, very big fan. I second the college applications part. As a senior, that was really, really important. And I caught up a lot of work, so we like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. It's good to hear. Anyone on the board have any questions before we move to public comment?
I just want to make a comment that may not be popular. I think starting on August 12th is way too early. It's the middle of summer. We started after Labor Day, and I appreciate that we needed to move the calendar back, but if there's a way to drop a day or two and start the 3rd week of August, it would at least feel like we have summer. Thank you.
Anyone here in person have any public comment to make on this calendar item? Anyone in our virtual audience? I'm not seeing anyone. Okay, so we are now going to move to a motion first, and then we will go ahead with discussion.
I move to approve the recommendation for, was it proposal 2, pardon me, thank you. The 4-day weekend one. Proposal 1, pardon me, the 4-day. You flashed me the wrong. The 4-day weekend proposal calendar, thank you. Recommendation, thank you.
Second.
Okay, great. So now we have a motion, and we're going to discuss any further comments, any further discussion on this item. Go ahead, student trustee.
For the moving back of like the school year into like we start so early, I know this is very like high school centered, the reason that it's pushed back so far, but like it's really important that we have finals before December break, or just like so we're not studying over break, but then also we kind of have a clean slate for the new school year, and also just like the new calendar year to like redo our goals of the school year and how we want to perform as students. So I know it's like affecting the whole district, but it does help a lot for the high school.
Second that again. Yeah, I mean, having finals after break sounds atrocious, frankly. And schoolwork, and then not to mention the fact that college applications are often, a lot of them are due at the very start of January, and having that like last stretch of break just be focused on finishing that out means that you can come into the next school year with like, you know, renewed focus and be actually like, you know, you're basically free from the chains of college applications. And so, yeah, we are, I think, yeah, both our student trustees here, we're both very much in favor of this earliest start date if it means not having finals after winter break.
Anyone else on the board have a comment? For Trustee Boyd.
Just a quick thing between the proposals 1 and 2, that another good thing for various caregivers that I've spoken to before is a preference to have school end on a Friday as opposed to it ending in the middle of the week and kind of having sort of random days scattered where you need to figure out childcare for your students if they're younger.
Yeah, I agree with Trustee Inglis and the students, because I would love to go back later as we did years ago when my kids first started, but I also was the parent of 3 kids who had to take their finals in the week after Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. So the entire winter break was taken up with sort of stress and worrying, and they didn't really get a break. And you have to go back after trying to have a break, and you're sort of reacquainting yourself with the material that you're about to have finals on. So I think it's difficult, but I think this is really the kind of optimal solution.
I think also we're roughly aligned with what's also happening at other school districts in the community. And when I think about what that means for summer jobs and those sorts of things, it's actually helpful that we're all kind of on the same sort of path. So I'm pro proposal 1, even if I'm old enough to have also gone back to school after Labor Day.
I do want to add just one other little piece of information, although I completely agree with Trustee Inglis. I also want to just say that many of our colleges and community colleges that offer dual enrollment for our students, and more and more of our students are taking advantage of that, actually have a similar calendar to this, and it's important that we are aligned with them as well. Just to note.
All good points. So we have a motion, and are we ready to vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was approved.
So we've done the motion and we've seconded it, and so now it's just we could say all in favor of the proposal that's on the table.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. So that carries. Thank you so much. We are now moving on to our discussion item section, and that is our full 2025 vital signs report. It's a team effort.
Good evening, Superintendent Stone, President Hopwood, Vice President Mahoney, trustees, and staff and community. Our executive team, our Ed Services team in particular, is excited to talk through our fall vital signs, which is really a presentation of our data. And I believe I'll be inviting Superintendent Stone to kick us off a little bit here.
All right, welcome to our first of 3 vital signs presentations this year. As we talked about last year, vital signs are really very similar to what you do when you go to the doctor. You check your blood pressure, you check your weight, you check your temperature, and the doctor says, you're healthy, you're in the right direction, or the doctor might say, you know, you might want to consider these different adjustments to become more healthy. And so vital signs presentation for us is just to kind of do a pulse check of where we are right now based on current data and in alignment or in connection to our broad goals for the year. And identify any areas where we might want to, right now, make some improvements, and also to celebrate the things that are going well. And so we're going to be sharing tonight just beginning of the year data that we currently are looking at, and just to get a baseline of where we are now. And mid-year, I think we'll be able to compare between the beginning of the year and where we are at the mid-year and see, you know, are the adjustments that we're making the right adjustments? So this is really about progress monitoring. And I will bring it back to Karen Schreiner.
So just to frame a little bit about the types of data we'll be looking at, we know generally there's about 3 different pieces of data that we look at as a school system. One is satellite data, which is really broad. It reveals equity trends, but it doesn't really offer a complete picture of how students are doing. The next sort of level down, we consider map data, which adds some depth. We might be looking at specific assessments, for example, that we know are predictive of future outcomes. So there's a leading component that it can help us inform action, but there's a bit of a lagging component too, in which case it's sometimes a little bit too late to take action on. And the third piece is really street data. This is what teachers collect all day, every day. It's the work of being a teacher. When we're looking at really micro data, whether that's conversations with students, that's skills-specific data, it's a really fine-tooth comb of an assessment, and it helps sort of paint the broader picture. And at our time together today and in the future at Vital Signs presentations, we'll really be living in more of the map and satellite level data pieces, and the work of street data happens during times like professional development and grade level and department time, things of that nature. So just to sort of ground us about the types of data we'll be looking at. As Superintendent Stone talked a little bit about earlier in her superintendent report, we have 3 pretty big priorities that we're focused on today: equitable and inclusive instruction, student belonging, and collaborative systems that were identified through many different sources to sort of come to these priorities. And from those priorities, we've developed some measurable goals to see how we're doing. And I won't go into detail about all of these here, but we're excited to be able to have really specific goals to continue to measure our progress against over the course of this year, so we can ensure we're doing right by students and families. The first piece that I'll be speaking to is some of our data around our priority of equitable, inclusive instruction. And I won't be getting into every single bullet point on this slide, but I did just want to capture an analysis here of the current state of our academic data. Broadly speaking, most of our students in Albany are really thriving, which is the incredible result of our incredibly hardworking teachers. Roughly 77% of students are meeting standards when it comes to their English language arts proficiency, 68% for math. And there's really a call to action here where, while the majority of students in Albany are thriving, we are not yet adequately meeting the needs of several of our focal groups of students: our Black students, our multilingual learners, our students with disabilities, and our students who come from low-income backgrounds. And I don't say that as a criticism. I'm new to the Albany community and have had an incredible first few months here, getting to know our really committed and amazing educators. But it is an invitation for us to look deeper at what we're doing, how we're doing it, and what we can do a little bit differently to better serve our students. And we are taking several key actions this year to really address that, so that over time, over the next really 5 years, one of our big goals is to shift those disproportionate outcomes for our students, which I understand has longitudinally been the case here over the last several years here in Albany. So we're gonna dig in a little bit here to our end of year results on the ELA CASP, which our 3rd through 8th and 11th graders take. You can see overall 77% of our students are meeting standard. Compared to last year, that was 75%. So a little bit of an improvement there, which is great. One highlight, it's not shown here, but our current 7th graders over the past few years, when we have looked at their cohort data, have really grown in their proficiency from 72% to 80%, which is a huge percent. Our students with disabilities are experiencing disproportionately lower reading outcomes. When we look at this data over time, since 2019, we can see that there has been some gains getting back to pre-pandemic levels. And we are excited at some of the recovery that has happened. And we are really wanting to set an ambitious goal to continue to increase proficiency for students, especially for our focal subgroups. So while our overall goal is to meet 82% proficiency this year, our big focus here is decreasing disproportionality by 10 percentage points, which is a really ambitious goal to do in a year. And we think that if we focus our supports, we can do it for our students. Stepping down a little bit, this is our beginning of year reading proficiency data for our middle school. Our baseline here with this new assessment called the STAR Renaissance Assessment. I understand that in years past, a different assessment was used that teachers did not prefer because it did not seem to correlate with how students would later perform. And so we're excited to see how this new assessment should hopefully reliably predict some later outcomes for students. And our baseline data at our middle school shows that 79% of students are meeting or exceeding standards. And the big group here that we are curious to dig into more is how our multilingual learners are performing, which you can see here in our data. Moving down a little bit further, here is our beginning of year literacy data at our elementary school. This is also a new assessment. The acronym, we love an acronym, DIBBLES, which stands for Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills, is part of of the new California Ed Code, which requires universal screening for students. This assessment is valid and reliable and predicts future reading challenge for students. So if students are proficient on this assessment, that tells us that they are not at risk for any future reading difficulties. And it's a really enlightening assessment to give at the elementary level in order to inform adjustments to what students need. At our elementary level right now, our baseline is 71% of students are reading at grade level. And again, just wanting to surface and name that disproportionality that several of our focal subgroups are experiencing right now, which mirrors the trends in the upper grades. Looking a little bit deeper at our multilingual learners, an assessment that they take every single year is called the LPAC, which determines their level of English proficiency. And this past year, 66% of our multilingual learners who took that assessment are making progress. So that means if the year prior they got a 1 on the assessment, this past year they scored a 2 or higher, which shows that they are gaining English proficiency. This is a really ambitious goal, but we're striving for 75% at least of our multilingual learners to show that growth, which is greater than our pre-pandemic status. And we think that having a big focus on supporting our multilingual learners, this is going to be possible for our students, especially thanks to the incredible work that our designated ELD teachers do each and every day. So, big picture. the vast majority of students in Albany are doing really, really well in our system. And subgroups of students who experience marginalization because of our society and the institutions we live in, some of that's being replicated here. And that's a call to action for us to interrogate that as a district who really cares about inclusivity and cares about our students. And we're excited to do that work in partnership with leaders and with teachers so that we can support shifting some of those outcomes. I'll let Director Brill take it from here.
Great. So I have the honor of focusing on our student sense of belonging, which is another kind of key indicator when we're looking at the health of our district, so to speak. So just as an overview, I always like to just point out that while we innately, I think, agree that we care that students feel a sense of belonging, it is also deeply tied to academic outcomes, and there's a lot of research supporting that. So even if we were only caring that our students perform well academically, this would still matter. And of course, it matters on its own accord. And our data does indicate that we're making progress with improving student sense of belonging. The three kind of main areas that we're focusing on to use as measures of that are attendance, which has increased over the last 3 years. Chronic absenteeism has declined. We are looking at suspension rates, which are declining overall, hovering between 1% to 2%. And we're also using the California Healthy Kids Survey, which is administered to students annually. And we're focusing in on their perception of having a caring adult relationship, and there's been an increase there. Similarly to the academic data, we see a mirror of disproportionality when we're looking at student sense of belonging. I'll also point out our attendance rates are not yet at pre-pandemic levels, so there's a lot of different factors that we know go into that, and we're really digging into that. But we also are looking at disproportionality with chronic absenteeism, particularly students with disabilities, Latino, Latinx students, Black African American students. And then we're also looking at disproportionality with our suspension rates. And there's a couple of areas of disproportionality, but we're focusing in on 3% of our students with disabilities were suspended, which is 2 percentage points higher than our overall student body. So as we go through this, we're just looking to kind of dig into root causes, focus on our cost team, our coordination of services team, which I'll get into, and investigate further how we can integrate restorative practices in. Okay. So average daily attendance, so this is basically, you can see our pre-pandemic levels of about 94.2%, and the drop after the pandemic, and we have been inching our way up and are making progress, and we're now just 1 percentage point below pre-pandemic levels. Similarly, with chronic absenteeism, we are definitely not back to where we were with pre-pandemic levels, but we are making progress. Last school year, we were at 12%. This school year, we're at 11%. When we dig into our focal subgroups, you can see on here that the first section is all of our students, and you can see where we are right now with 11%. And then, and you can see kind of the arc of pre-pandemic, and then since the pandemic, and then our slow rebound. But when you look at other subgroups, you can also see disproportionality. The highest one being with our students with disabilities, which we're focusing in on, not to say that we're ignoring the other subgroups, but there's also a cross-section of intersectionality there, as well as just one area to particularly focus in on while we're still, of course, paying attention to all of our student groups. What we would like to be working on is reducing the disproportionality of these subgroups by 5 percentage points in a year, which is ambitious, but we're really trying to double down and put our energy into that. When we look at our suspension data, you can see it here broken down by our elementary schools, our middle, and our high schools. And you can see that elementary hovers below 1%, middle school varies 1 to 3, and you can see the high school has been steadily decreasing. Suspensions is now below 1%. And again, when we dig into our focal subgroups, you can see the disproportionality with relation to suspensions, and are really, again, going to kind of dial in on those, and I'm going to talk a little bit in a moment about how we're going to dial in. The California Healthy Kids Survey, again, it's a once-a-year survey. We're playing around with other ways that we can collect more timely data related to student sense of belonging, but this is a normed indicator. And you can see the changes between 2023-24, 2024-25, in these three areas that we picked, with a focus on caring adult relationships, which we know impacts the other pieces as well. We can see that our 5th, 9th, and 11th grades have shown progress. 7th grade, we need to dial in on to see kind of what's happening. There was a slight decrease there. And we're looking to increase that percentage point by 3 percentage points for each of our school groups. So in terms of what we do with this, one of the pieces that we're going to be really focusing on is dialing in on the root causes of suspensions for our students in disproportionate subgroups. What's happening for these students? Are we providing the supports that they need? What types of restorative work we'd be doing? So if there are disciplinary pieces we're making sure we're calling students in. And really also looking at root causes for chronic absenteeism. We have begun this work. This is not new, but we're going to really be digging into examining, like, for each of these students, what is going on for them? What supports can we put in place? How do we address each of these students' needs, and what are the trends that we're seeing? Our coordination of student services teams. When we do those teams are teams that we now have at every single one of our schools, and it's a group of different professionals. So it's our school administrator, school psychologist, community or wellness coordinator, school counselors. It's often there's someone from the special education department that joins in, and it's a chance where they go through and really look at students who are coming up in areas of concern, whether it's related to absenteeism, academics, or behavioral pieces, and really dialing in on what's happening for each student. Let's look at the data. What interventions have we tried? What can we collect data on those interventions, and what else needs to happen? And through those teams, we're also going to be focusing in on these disproportionate subgroups. And through that work, we really want to be working to increase student sense of belonging in the different ways that we've mentioned. And additionally, we have a really unique opportunity. We now have community and wellness coordinators at all of our sites. And so we've been working on how can we kind of articulate the work that they're doing to provide some common language around restorative practices, to provide students with tools of how to access safe spaces and how to self-regulate. So that's another piece that we're adding in.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask one of you to advance for me, please. So I'm going to take on most of this section, although I probably will ask CBO Wu to come up at one point. But we're going to talk right now about our collaborative systems for continuous improvement, which is also aligned to our one of our LCAP goals. Next slide. So in order to improve in this area, we're focused on building systems that really ensure that we're fiscally responsible, that our operations are running excellently, and we're building out community trust in these areas. We're ensuring that we're using data and feedback to strengthen the conditions and make our schools the best that they can be. And part of that is ensuring that we have safe, clean, and well-maintained schools. So we have ideas about how to get there. You can go back to that one, sorry. Some ideas about how to get there, and these all came more from listening campaign and from other surveys and pieces of information. But we want to make sure that our budget information is really clear, really transparent, and that it's, again, written in more plain language so people understand it. And we really want people to understand the budgeting process. And so coming up in January, we will be doing a board study session on budgeting, not just the budget. And so this hopefully will help our community better understand. And also we want to make sure that things are easy to find on our website, that if there's a question about the budget, you can find information. If there's a question about your school site's budget, it's easy to find that information. Also, we want to make sure that community is engaged in that process. Our budget is actually our values in action. It's our goals and our strategies in action, and so it's important that those two things match and that they're clear. We also want to make sure, in order to do that, that there's regulars, but we really need our community to be engaged and understand our data, and that's part. And we also want to bring in some other tools to audit, to understand, and to ensure that specifically around school safe, clean and well-maintained safe schools, that we really understand what needs to be fixed, when it needs to be fixed, and we have a timely system for that. Next slide. So this idea of a net promoter score comes from actually Trustee Mahoney, Vice President Mahoney. He had a net promoter score, so you can go to the next slide. He had a net promoter score, so you can go to the next slide. So currently, at this point, I don't know how many took the survey, 139. And when I pulled data earlier today for my report, it was more. But ultimately, we had a baseline right now of a negative 23.9 net promoter score, which really means that people rated us as between a 5 and a 10. Sorry, I should say that backwards. Between a 6 and a 1 more frequently than a 7 and above. And that is, again, a smaller group of our community. It definitely is not uncommon to have a low net promoter score when you have times of change, new superintendent, other things that are changing. Clearly, we have a lot of trust to build and work to do. And ultimately, it is important that we start to see that grow. But I just want to be clear. This isn't really our net promoter score, but this is what it would be if we were to do it today. Okay, next slide, please. Another thing that I wanted to highlight is our current work order volume. So when this slide is a little confusing, we might need CBO Wu to help explain it a little bit. But ultimately, let me take a stab at it, and you can step up and see if I did it correctly. Do you want to? Okay. So ultimately, this is how many work orders we have in the different types of work that we need in our school sites. Part of the reason why we have so many work orders right now, and this is a lot, actually. I know I don't have a comparison to what it could be, but this is a lot. Really, we don't want to see many of these. We want to see 0 leaks. We want to see, that we don't need a ton of general maintenance. The reason that we have this, though, is that we don't really have a clear maintenance and operations plan spelled and marked out yet, and that is something that we're working on. Did I say that? Yeah? Do you want to add anything, or are you good? Okay, great. All right. So again, we're trying to create some baselines here. We are currently working on a system to be able to understand some of the work order categories and then prioritize them. We're also working just to overall, through the facilities master plan, have a really clear plan for maintenance and operations over time. Next slide, please. And the last baseline that the last slide that I want to kind of go over is just where we are right now in terms of some of our goals. So at the beginning of the deck, you saw some of our, ambitious goals. I think we set some very ambitious goals for across the board. And I truly believe that if we really pay attention and we do the things that we're starting to do now, and especially around tightening up systems, we're going to be able to get there. We are going to have 100% of our school departments and instructional leaders be able to report that they understand their budget and the process for budgeting. I will say that when I first got here last year, that would not be true, but it will be true, and it should be true by January. So we're gonna meet that goal quickly. Also, we do have now a new district website where our budget data is accessible right on the homepage, and we're trying to keep that timely and up to date. In December, we'll be doing our budget first interim report, and so the information will be up to date by then. We're going to be having budget town halls. So I mentioned that in January, we're going to have a board study session around budgeting, and then after that, we're going to have some targeted budget town hall meetings that community will be invited to better understand some of the areas that are still questionable, or that they still have questions about, should not be questionable. And again, one of the current statuses right now is that 17% of our budget managers are trained to use the Escape budget tool. There was a transition to Escape prior to CBO Wu coming. I think it was a few years ago. And unfortunately, there wasn't any training for any of the budget managers to use this tool. It's really important that people know how to use this tool and understand it in order to get to the 100% of people being able to report that they understand their budget and the process for budgeting. As I said before, we're going to start to develop this Net Promoter Score. We want to improve that, and we definitely want to improve how many people are taking our surveys. And so part of that is also understanding the better strategies and systems for getting that feedback. And last but not least, we currently have 174 active work order requests, although I know a few more came in today. That number should be honestly, under 30. And so we need to, if less. And so that's something that we're going to be working on. And I will say that right now, the good thing is, and we might, anecdotally, I've heard, that the schools seem cleaner. Part of that is because each custodian has a very clear schedule that they're following. And I think it's very, very clear what the expectations are. And so I would say that we're in pretty good shape right now, but obviously we can get better. All right, and next slide. So yeah, I think I mentioned all of these as next steps. I don't need to go over them again. And so Karen, you want to take it over?
I think just to close out our presentation, we're excited to hear any questions and discuss and get some feedback on what we're thinking in terms of how we can collectively work to do better for students and families.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have questions? Student trustees, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have two questions. One for work orders. Can work orders be I'm forgetting the word. Maintenance, does it have to be maintenance, or can it be outside custodial staff that can resolve work orders? Or both?
Meaning people who do not work for our school district?
No, for the work orders, does it have to be the maintenance staff, or can it also just be the custodial staff at each site?
Yeah, I'll let CBO Wood answer.
That's an excellent question. So between the maintenance staff and also our custodial staff, there's really clearly defined job responsibilities, of which many of the actual work orders is required to some form of maintenance from the maintenance staff. When we took a look at this analysis, very few of the work orders that came in was actually related to requiring some sort of custodial support.
Thank you.
Any more questions from student trustees? No. Anyone else on the board have a question before we move to public comment? Go ahead, Trustee Boyd.
These are both data questions that might be a sort of look at and share in future. But I was just wondering if we have any thoughts or ideas as to what might have changed for both the 23-24 to last year to this year for Black students, that drop, and then the drop in absenteeism for all students for the last 2 years as opposed to the 2 years before that. Hopefully those questions made sense, but if not, tell me and I can say them again.
Let me check my understanding. I think the first question is about this piece here, right? Have we done some root cause analysis?
Right.
What are some theories about why that change may have happened for our Black students? And then the second question around chronic absenteeism. Will you say that part again?
Yeah, just for all students, the last 2 years being a good deal lower than the 2 years prior to that. If there are any thoughts about what happened there. And then for the Black students, I guess I'll add, last year there was a big increase, as in the good way, like it was a good, and then it came down. And so I'm curious as to whether there are any thoughts about, it seemed like there were perhaps practices that we were doing in the district that it seemed like were maybe being helpful for last year. I know it's a smaller population, so that can be more sort of volatile in that way, but just, yeah, those two questions.
Yeah, those are great questions. Thank you so much. Deb, do you want to take the chronic absenteeism piece?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that what we've seen, and this has kind of been across the board, is just with chronic absenteeism after COVID, there's a lot higher rates of school resistance, mental health issues, and then also families keeping their kids home like with the slightest sniffle, which was not true before. It used to be like, you have a cold, like, unless you're throwing up or have a fever, get in there, you know, and I think that really shifted. And I think that like over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of extra resources and work put into supporting families around school resistance, around supporting kids with mental health issues. Families have stabilized and rebounded. So, you know, that's my take on that. And I'll also just add, just as an interesting point, that Alameda County's rate of chronic absenteeism is 18%, and statewide it's 20%, and we're at 11. So, you know, which is, you know, not that we're generally doing better than the county and state, so I never want to just be like, yay, you know, we've got this, but at the same time, it's a helpful baseline, I think, to see.
And then in terms of the question here around the academic piece, this data is, let's see if I can do the math right here. Last year's third graders through eighth graders and 11th graders. So this year's seniors and then the grade above for each of the other cohorts. Having not been here last year with those groups of students, I can't speak to any sort of like specific initiatives that were in place, but it's definitely something that as we are looking at data with leaders, and leaders are supporting teachers to look at data, and teachers are supporting each other to look at data, we're really trying to yes.
Is it the same kids that are now dropping, or is it a student group? And if it's the student group that's over time consistently dropping, then obviously that, I loved how Karen said it, it's a call to action. If it's a cohort of students and they're dropping and we have specific information about each student, then we need to know we need to put a targeted plan in place. So I think it's, the question there is really for, and this is what we are doing, when we come together and look at data, is looking at more of the cohort match data to see, is this specific students? I also wanted to add something in around the coordination of services process. So coordination of services is not just about looking at students' mental health, social, and emotional needs, it's also looking at their academic needs and looking across. So if we have students who are chronically absent and we're seeing their academic scores drop, that makes sense, because you need to be at school to do the learning, right? If we're seeing, again, the disproportionality across groups of students, which we are, we have to interrogate a little bit more. What are we doing and what can we do better to support those students? And so I do think in the differentiated learning presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things we are trying to do that are to support and help to shift that disproportionality.
Anyone else have any questions or comments from the board? Anyone in our audience have any? Oh, go ahead.
So noticed so first of all, I appreciate a lot of the work done on the ELA, proficiency and equity. But additionally, I would like to see maybe in the next vital signs report and also continuously throughout the year more data regarding mathematics equity. I know that both of these topics are really important to the district right now. There's the whole reading goal, but keeping in mind the many surveys and constant feedback we're getting around mathematics and how that's an area of improvement needed, I would like to see more on that. As well as just how important it is for making successful high school graduates.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that feedback. Am I allowed to respond to that rules-wise? Okay, sorry, still learning. Such a great push. I think one of the things we're trying to do as a district, knowing that, yeah, we have these really big, broad goals that are driving our LCAP, we also know that if we try to prioritize everything at one time, we will do nothing. And so we're trying this year to focus on literacy, and in particular at the elementary school level, as a preventative mechanism, and starting to set the stage for the focus on math coming down the line with the Math Vision team, articulating a clear vision for excellent math in a chunked period of time so we can start to get those accelerated outcomes.
Great, and thanks for that question. No one else on the board? Anybody in our audience have any questions or comments? Go ahead. Oh, let me just, oh, okay. I can wait. All right, go ahead. All right.
So the Vitals report, does it generally focus on like data collected by the district, or can there be more feedback from community members involved in it? I'm just curious if that's kind of a separate thing, or that's going to be possibly something that could be implemented later on.
Yeah, really great question. Sarah, do you want to speak to where that connects with the collaborative systems for improvement?
Yeah, if you go to that section. So this part right here, I think going back to that, we want to make sure that we're creating regular opportunities for people to give feedback. We're starting to create a process for that. And so right now it's about putting those processes in place, but we'll also be reporting out on people's feedback. So I would love more and more student voice in this process, so that so part of what we're looking at, and going back to what Executive Director Brill was talking about as well around student sense of belonging, a big part of what we need to report out on is how our students feeling about school safety, school connectedness, and caring adult relationships. But yes, we will be putting more and more pieces of data around community feedback into these presentations. Did I answer your question?
With that that feedback section, is that going to be mostly on like student feelings of like belonging, or can that also be involved in other parts, like how they feel about equity, or how they feel about because I feel like I've heard many opinions about this. I'm just curious, also, is that going to be in the Vitals report, or is that going to be a separate thing? Sorry, I didn't catch that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're trying to do is progress monitor towards our overall goals. And so our current overall goals are the equitable, inclusive instruction, student belonging, collaborative systems for continuous improvement, meaning they're really broad. So my answer to you is yes, we can add those types of things in because we have a lot of different areas that we're measuring. I will say back to what Executive Director Schreiner just said, we are trying to focus, because if we try to look at everything, we're really not going to do anything well. So we're trying to get really, really focused. But I will absolutely love to talk with you and Student Trustee Shepard about some of your ideas about what we could be asking and looking for and reporting on. And it can be in the vital signs, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you good. Go right ahead. Your comment.
Thank you for that report. I had two comments, one of which was preempted by the mention of looking at cohorts. I was really curious to follow the same group of kids over time, because I think especially in these smaller groups that can have a huge impact. So awesome. Second question is, how is suspension rate being measured? Is that like a kid is ever suspended in 1 year? Or is it number of days suspended, right? There's a lot of ways of looking at it that I think, like, if the average goes up, but the percent goes down, you might not actually have a big, so anyways, are you thinking about that is my main query, and in what ways? Okay, I'll stop.
Yeah, would you go ahead and respond? That would be, yeah, I would love to know that information.
Okay?
I think that's,
Great.
I would
I'll
have
let
that
Deb take it because we talked about this. And
thank
we
you.
apologize, we didn't make that clear.
No.
Yeah, thank you for that question, because you're right, it can mean a lot of different things. The suspension rates on here are unduplicated student counts. So students who are involved in one or more incidents that led to suspension. So it's talking about discrete students that are on here.
It's not, if one suspension is 1 day and one suspension is 5 days, those are treated equally?
Right, this is the number of students, the percentage of students who have experienced 1 or more days of suspension. Yeah, I mean, internally we are looking at it and breaking it down and doing all those pieces. I think for the purpose of this presentation, that was the snapshot we grabbed to be able to look at disproportionality. But to your point, yes, because if we're talking about like a particular student who's been suspended 9 days, what's happening for that kid? And that's different than, or do we have a bunch of students who have only been suspended 1 day, and is that preventable in a different type of way? So absolutely, thank you.
Thanks for clarifying. Anybody else in our audience have a comment? No. And I'm not seeing anyone online either, so we can now move on.
My worst nightmare is about Zoom coming to life. So for the next little bit of time, I'm going to share in a more focused way about some of our instructional work that we're doing specifically at the elementary level. And before we get into any of this, what I want to start by saying is how much I appreciate our teachers. And all of our teachers, but right now I'm talking about our elementary teachers because that's what we're about to spend time with. Over the past few months, I've just had such the honor and privilege of having phone calls with teachers in the evening as they're looking at data and wanting support to know how they can better serve their students, eating lunch with teachers and understanding all the ways that they are working so hard, as Alex said earlier, after hours, during hours to support their kids. Being invited to grade level times and hearing frustrations of what teachers are experiencing. Because at the root of it, we're all here because we care about kids. And so I just want to take a moment to really, really acknowledge our elementary teachers and how hard they're working. And there's some changes we're implementing this year, and that can be really hard, and it can be frustrating, and it can be challenging, and really just wanting to acknowledge the emotion that comes with that. And as someone who's new to the Albany community, I also want to share a little bit about my perspective and how I see my role in particular as a white leader in a quite affluent community, someone who's new here. And one of the things I appreciate about Albany is how welcoming folks are, how inclusive they strive to be, what a lens folks have on education as an issue of social justice. And I also believe to my core as a leader that it's our moral imperative to hold both a mirror and a microscope up to our work. And to really be a district that disrupts historically predictable patterns based on race and income and language and other identity markers, especially in the current political climate where folks are being attacked and where funds are being taken away based on identity. And we're in a position to do that and to continue to strive to do better if we do that work together. As we just saw in our vital signs presentation, the majority of our students are thriving, which is a testament to the great work that's happening at our schools. And some of our underserved groups of students are not. And some of the challenges that I want to elucidate today during this time are in large part due to systems. They're due to curriculum that is not grounded in research. And they're due to aspects of scheduling that in the past have unintentionally pulled students out of core instruction while trying to provide extra support. None of that is done with intentionality. I don't say any of that with blame. But part of our work as a district is to interrogate our systems to better serve students. And so we're in the process of adopting new research-based curriculum. We're in the process of learning about what different types of scheduling processes could be that center our students who are historically furthest from opportunity. And we're seeing some early signs of positive results that we're excited to share. And we're also really carefully working to listen to feedback so that we can refine our processes. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how we're doing some of this work by protecting time for differentiated instruction during this time that we've been calling win time, what I need time. I just said the agenda, so I'm going to skip this slide. So just to calibrate a little bit about what we mean when we say differentiated instruction, here are some photos of incredible work happening in our elementary schools. It's a protected time when students get targeted support that they need. And for students who need additional support, based on our data that we looked at earlier, this often entails small group instruction. And for students meeting or exceeding grade level expectations, right now, this often entails independent work or partner work or personalized learning, and that includes some of that being on platforms that we've talked about in past board meetings as we approve contracts such as Happy Numbers or Amplify Boost that are tailored to kiddos' particular needs. Historically, these differentiated learning experiences in our elementary schools have happened throughout the day, at various parts of the day. So maybe during X part of a math block, this part of an ELA block. And a shift this year that's happening is rather than those happening throughout parts of the day, they're happening during a protected block of time to ensure that students who need additional support are not pulled out of core instruction. And there's some exciting bright spots that we're really proud about over the last 2 months of implementing this differentiated instruction. Shout out to our Cornell second grade team that includes our RSP teacher, our ELD teacher, and our interventionist, where 94% of second graders who were at the beginning of the year below grade level. So that means at risk for future reading difficulty. 94% of them in their recent progress monitoring in the last couple weeks are on track to meet their middle of year goal. That's huge. That's life-changing for those kids. And OV, similarly in second grade, it's 87% of those students on track. Our Marin third grade team is making incredible progress. And our third grade team at OV is really, really committed to using data to drive instruction. They have incredible expertise over there. 97% of their kids were progress monitored, and more than half are on track to meet their goal. And our teachers are doing really innovative things. At OV in fifth grade, the intervention team and the ELD teachers and the classroom teachers, they're strategically grouping students across classes so that students are getting the exact support they need and the exact type of thing related to literacy that the data is telling them. And I've had the privilege to see that incredible instruction in action. When it comes to supporting our teachers to do this, about once a month we come together for professional learning, where we're learning about both the structure of what win time could look like, digging into the data together and thinking about what adjustments can be made, and also about what evidence-based practices look like, some of which of those sessions are being led by our teachers. Sue Goose and Andrea Pletcher and Lisa Taw have all stepped up to the plate to share their incredible expertise, and we're seeing the feedback from teachers in that PD space climb over time, from an average of 4.1 out of 5, from an average of 3.7 out of 5 to now 4.1 out of 5. We're really trying to be responsive to feedback. I think it's quite clear how this focus on differentiated instruction connects to our goals, but just really wanting to name that this time is at the heart of equitable, inclusive instruction so that kids get what they need. This next chunk, I'm gonna move through sort of quickly because we just looked at this data. But I do want to just speak to why this really matters for the students we serve. And I want to start by asking us to look at our enrollment data by race and by ethnicity at our sites. Our Latino students comprise about 70% of our district, and our Black students make up less than 4% of our district. Numerically, it's quite a small number of students, and we know that just because students are in a numerical minority does not mean that they're any less important than the dominant groups in our schools. Similarly, when we look at our students who come from low-income backgrounds or who are learning English, or who have disabilities. Again, this is a really small number of students, but I think it's really important for us in the same way that our teachers strive to have Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, as a framework when they're planning with a particular student in mind, we need to be doing that with our systems too. We need to be thinking about which students are being served and which students are not yet, so that we can make adjustments there. So looking again just a little bit more closely at our DIBELS data, our early literacy indicators, these discrepancies exist currently across all grades, though grades are not shown in terms of the average Albany student, across the average of Albany, 71% of students being proficient, and seeing that disproportionality among some of our focal subgroups. And as we talked about earlier, that sort of same disproportionality persisting across grades, though not cohort matched, and appreciate the feedback which we'll bring to future board meeting spaces for sure. When we look here a little bit closer at our ELA KASB data, this data represents students' distance from standard. So how many points away on the KASB they are from meeting standard. And in grades 3 through 8 and 11, our Black students, our multilingual learners, and our students with disabilities are only subgroups who are on average performing below standard right now. I really like this quote by Deming. Every system is perfectly designed to get the result it gets. It doesn't mean we're doing it on purpose. It does mean it's an outcome that's happening right now. And it really is a call to action, I believe, to center our systems and structures around students who have historically been underserved. And so I want to talk and sort of peel back the curtain, if that's a phrase, around two key levers we're trying to pull to shift some of these outcomes right now. One is what I started talking about that we're going to dig into in a little bit, which is that protected time for differentiated targeted instruction. And the reason why is because we know from decades of research on multi-tiered systems of support that an additional 30 to 60 minutes typically is what's needed for those students to catch up to and have their needs met. And there's a scheduling implication there and a time implication there, which is one of our most precious resources. And sort of getting a little bit, in the forest, I want to talk about one of the pieces I led with at the beginning, which is the current state of our ELA instruction across K-5. Because one of our big priorities right now is adopting evidence-based instruction. And I have the real privilege of meeting at least once a month with a group of about 20 teacher leaders who are incredibly passionate about the science of reading and ensuring that students have access to curriculum and materials and instruction that they need to be successful. So I won't go through this timeline in depth. I think the key takeaway here is that over the last 10 years in Albany, the curriculum that's being used to teach literacy, it has not been aligned with the reading research or the science of reading, the vast body of knowledge that has existed for more than 30 to 50 years that tells us how the brain learns to read. The curriculum that is our current adopted curriculum, the Lucy Calkins Units of Study, sorry for that typo, does not match what we know about how the brain reads. And this is not an Albany issue, this is a country issue. If folks have not listened to the podcast, Sold a Story, I really encourage you to do so. But throughout our country and throughout California in particular, we have not been putting curriculum into the hands of teachers that aligns with the reading research. And one of the incredible things about Albany that I've learned is that our teachers are incredibly passionate, incredibly motivated, and go above and beyond every single day to do right by kids. And so once that curriculum began to be implemented, teachers noticed a gap. They noticed that kids weren't getting their phonics needs met, and they advocated with the district. They said, we need something to support our students. And pre-pandemic, that got put in place through a curriculum called Foundations in some classes, in some grade levels, but never across the board. It was never adopted. Post-pandemic, while culturally the science of reading was becoming a mainstream topic, teachers came back and advocated for professional learning about this because they knew it was what was best for kids. And so there were a few years when teachers really began to grow their knowledge around the science of reading and structured literacy. In this past year, my colleague Michelle Sinclair did a wonderful job convening a group of incredibly passionate teachers to form on our ELA curriculum adoption committee that I'm currently leading. And in order to not repeat some of the past missteps that happened with prior curricula adoption, that process has been really grounded in research. There's an amazing organization called the Reading League that evaluates curricula against an objective set of criteria that are aligned with the reading science. And that is how we have started our journey to ensure that whichever curricula we select at the end of this year is going to be supportive to our students. Our teachers are working incredibly hard right now to pilot the first curriculum that they selected, called Fish Tank, which is based on a set of 6 criteria we developed together that are aligned with the reading research. And this spring, they'll be piloting a second curricula called Core Knowledge Language Arts that was actually selected based on looking at 120 direct quotes from teachers after everyone on the committee engaged in empathy interviews with teachers in terms of what they need to feel supported in teaching a new curriculum. Over the last couple weeks, our K2 teachers have decided that they have the bandwidth and desire to not just adopt a common ELA curriculum, but also a common phonics curriculum, which is a really big deal because right now we're using more than 10 different phonics programs across our sites, partially because our teachers have done so much creating of materials themselves because they're so hardworking, but they're not curriculum developers. They shouldn't need to do that. We should have a common baseline that's good for kids. And we're in the process of beginning to engage teachers in terms of budget development around what they need to be supported to implement these curricula next year. And I just wanted to take this time to share some of those insights from our teachers because I think to student trustees Kunsel's point earlier, feedback really, really matters, and hearing from the people most impacted really matters. And so in reading through all of these empathy interviews and working together to identify what the themes and insights were, our teachers named that it's really important to have a coherent curriculum while also allowing for teacher creativity. It's important to have common assessment so we know how our students are doing. It's important that there's equitable access for students, especially for our kids who have IEPs and our kids who are learning English. And it's really, really important that the curriculum, it doesn't matter if it's perfect if teachers can't use it. It has to be user-friendly, it has to be realistic to implement, it has to fit within the school day, it has to fit within the school year, and it's our prerogative as a district to provide really strong ongoing support and training for teachers, and that matters for how we plan for next year. And last but not least, it needs to build knowledge and vocabulary for our students. This is a key piece that the research tells us that our current curricula does not have, which is that one of the greatest predictors of reading comprehension and the instructional materials piece is a big missing part of the puzzle when it comes to our data and the longitudinal data of our elementary students over the years. And I bring this to light related to the differentiated instruction, our win time that's happening, because right now for our students who are at or above grade level, it's challenging and time-consuming for teachers to be really thoughtful about what's happening for those subgroups of students because our core curriculum is not strong. And so next year when we have a really strong common curricula that's grounded in research, it's going to be an incredible way to extend students' learning next year during win time, especially for our students who are meeting and exceeding benchmark. So bringing this back down to why we're here today, to talk about protected time for differentiated instruction. I want to ground us in this concept called the Matthew effect, which comes from sociological research, but has really, in the last 10 years or so, been applied to literacy development in particular, which is the simple concept that the gap between proficient readers and striving readers widens over the years, because kids who are good readers improve at a faster pace, while poor readers improve at a slower pace. And I don't mean that in a deterministic way. I mean it to say that the earlier we intervene and the earlier we provide support, the better that we can eliminate the gap that's caused by this effect. Because if we always do what we've always done, we're always going to get what we always got. So we're trying some new things this year. A lot of it has not gone perfectly yet, but we're trying some things and we're monitoring to see our outcomes. So our goal here is really to refine, to preserve what's working and to refine what's not. And so specifically, we're working to have schedules that center protected time for students to get that targeted instruction. We're shifting when independent and other differentiated learning time previously happened, so it happens during one block of time, so no students miss core instruction. and really putting in systems around data-driven collaboration during grade level time, during ILT time, during PD, during communities of practice when our ELD teachers are digging into their students' LPAC data. Because there's a lot around this that has been working for a long time in Albany, actually. OV, over the last few years, has had a really strong focus on collaboration with their interventionists and their ELD teachers. And that led to really significant reclassification rates that ultimately is one of the reasons they were recognized as a California Distinguished School. So they've been figuring this work out, and we're trying to scale that. At Cornell last year, several teams, but are right here on the slide is highlighted the first grade team who piloted a walk to read model, which is another name for differentiated instruction. It's another name for win time, where they made some really meaningful gains in student literacy when other grades who did not have that pilot actually decreased the percentage of proficiency over the years. So we're not doing it perfectly, but our intent is to be scaling some of the incredible work that has previously been existing in Albany. And around the schedule piece, I want to share a little bit about what's happening and how it relates to research about elementary schedules. So what research tells us is that the core instructional time should be guided by your core curriculum. Typically it's 90 minutes, but it's anywhere from 30 to 120, depending on what curriculum you're looking at. And that's a real challenge for us when our curricula has a lot of flaws and when teachers are creating their own materials because the curricula has so many flaws, which is why we're engaging in that curriculum adoption process right now. What research also tells us is that students below grade level need a minimum of 30 additional minutes of tier 2 or additional time. And students performing significantly below grade level, the recommendation is 45 to 60 minutes. So that's really how some of our scheduling got developed by principals and implemented in team at sites this year by having a range of 30 to 60 minutes of additional targeted instruction time for students who need it. We know that that has not happened perfectly, and so principals are actively reviewing progress monitoring data that are referred to at the beginning, some of those celebrations, but also some of those challenges to try to adjust schedules, and I'll share some examples of that shortly. Another piece that we are implementing that's aligned to research is that blocks of those schedules are blocked typically by grade level so that students can be shared across classes in order to be getting really targeted skill-based support. And again, principals are reviewing that data to see, if only X students in 3rd grade need this and X students in 4th grade need this, we can shift the schedule to be responsive to that. So they're absolutely empowered to do that with their teams. And this piece here is a big grow area for us right now, which is that students receive the same amount of core instruction across grades, which it just varies right now, given the state of many different materials being used. And something that we're planning for right now, we're in the process of doing this, is drafting instructional schedules next year based on what our potential curricula options are that we're piloting. And principals will be engaging their ILTs and their staff to get feedback so that we have this really long runway of feedback cycles so that our schedules are responsive to both student data but also teacher need. And this last piece here is that there's opportunities for staff to come together and plan so that they can, look at data, support each other, plan together, et cetera. Which is one of the outcomes we have this year in terms of having common prep, as well as one designated time that principals join, either facilitate or support a collaborative planning time. And so just to sort of make this a little bit more visual for folks, because those are a lot of words on the page, essentially what this means in terms of scheduling time when we think about a multi-tiered systems of support structure, all kids get core instruction. Some kids get some additional instruction, 30 minutes more, and kids with their highest need, ideally up to 60 minutes more per day. And so here's just some of the shifts, and I know these are not trends, they're pretty micro shifts, but we just wanted to give some examples of ways in which our leaders are working to be responsive to feedback. We've had some reduction of collaboration time in order to implement more intervention time. OV is starting to work with kinder in small groups based on data, which is exciting. We heard some feedback from folks at Cornell around the schedule feeling really challenging, and so we went back to the schedules, made some adjustments, put some clear transition time in. We actually looked at student-by-student data to set a goal of where students need to be with their progress before their group is reduced in the amount of intervention time. Marin has already adjusted some schedules. He did this at the beginning of the year of combining grade level intervention time based on data, and I know their team is in the process of rethinking amounts of times for certain grades, for example, 4th grade, reducing the amount of win time based on data. So just as a quick summary, we are going to continue to protect time for differentiated instruction. It is an issue of equity for our students who have historically been underserved. And we're also really wanting to be responsive to feedback. We're looking forward to how new, strong, evidence-based Tier 1 curricula can support our kids next year. And we're looking forward to engaging teachers throughout this year so that teachers feel heard and supported, and that our schedules are responsive to both student and teacher needs next year. And love to hear questions, feedback, suggestions from the team.
Thank you so much. Student trustees, do you have any questions? No? Anybody else on the board have any questions? We move on to public comment.
I have a question. When I look at our data, I see two things. Obviously, I see that our historically marginalized groups aren't performing at the levels we want, and through a whole host of reasons you've articulated. I actually see that overall we're not meeting our goals. Like, it's not just where certain subgroups aren't being successful, but if I look at that 85% goal across the board, none of our subgroups actually reach that goal. So is the way for me to think about this, or the way I've internalized it, what I'm looking for is, am I thinking about this the right way, is probably the better way of articulating it, which is with this two-pronged approach of curriculum, new curriculum adoption, and protected time. Curriculum adoption should help across the board and help rise all boats, so to speak. And differentiated instruction will be a little more targeted at some of our disadvantaged groups. Not that it's not going to impact all groups, but it probably will affect some groups more than others. Is that the right way for me to think about it?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right.
And then I have another question, which I probably kind of know the answer to, but I feel like I need to ask, which is, as we think about curriculum adoption, now, to be honest, like, full transparency, I wasn't close to whatever our curriculum adoption that got us Lucy Calkins back in the day, and I know a lot of districts ended up in that space. And I too, I guess, will endorse. Sold a story. I'm not getting paid, but in terms of and science of reading, which is a broad term, is kind of the, I hate to say it, but like kind of vogue, or is the current thinking.
Sure.
How should we think about this adoption to make sure we aren't just making the same mistake again?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that question. If I can first push slightly before answering the question.
Go for it.
I do, have heard from lots of folks, science of reading is en vogue right now, or the pendulum has swung. And I think in some ways that's true in the cultural. Lucy, I went to the writers' workshop at Teachers College. I worshiped at the altar. You know better, you do better. And I think that's what the majority, if not all of Albany teachers are doing right now. I think what we're trying to do in our adoption process is to be very grounded in research. Teachers, for example, were paid this summer to read evaluation reports from the Reading League. And when we came together this fall to narrow down our choices, all of that happened by looking at what those evaluation reports told us, and actually had really clear cut points for, if this curricula doesn't score with this number of red flags, because that's what they're actually called in the report, red flags versus green flags, then we're not considering it. So we're really trying to ground the work that we're doing in research and evidence and data, and not so much about opinion or desires. Not that those aren't important, but I don't know if that answers your question.
It's about what I thought. I mean, yeah, agreed. And I too was, as I stated earlier, I wasn't here for how we did it the first time. Didn't understand how we screwed it up.
And no shade to anybody who was at that time either.
It was a broader cultural thing, unfortunately.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Any other questions? I had one on the board.
So it seems like you have a really good way of getting feedback on how the students are doing, right? Because there's regular testing. I know there's been some frustration from elementary teachers about the impact to the the change and the schedule and so forth. How will you get feedback from the teachers across the various sites and be able to make tweaks to the schedule if you need to?
Yeah, really good question. I can speak to some of the work that we have done and sort of, I think, the culture we're trying to cultivate or shift or just make more clear. Some of the work that I've been doing with principals is when teachers surface needs or challenges, which I'm new here, so there are a lot of people who are coming to me, but not most people coming to me yet. I think that will come with time and trust. And I would say a good amount of people have surfaced feedback. And so some of the work that I do when I'm supporting principals in thinking about what their systems are, what the literacy practices are, or insert other topic, is supporting them to think about how to make some of those adjustments and be responsive to feedback. So, for example, this piece, the final bullet point on this slide around the Marin 4th grade schedule, that came from supporting our leaders to look at data, understand the number of students with different types of needs, and then looking at the schedule to see what can adjust, and then making a plan about what that would look like in terms of meeting back with that teacher team to make those revisions. And so part of the work that we're doing with our leaders is really wanting to support them to develop systems and improve our knowledge of literacy instruction, but that also comes with the change management piece and how we're being responsive to feedback along the way. So I guess in a short way, the answer is we're trying to support principals to feel empowered to be able to work with their team and put feedback into action.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board? No. We can take public comment if anyone's here for public comment, and please approach the podium. If you have something that is needed.
That might not be true. And then I guess for the students who are in Tier 1, is there any opportunity to further challenge? I think anecdotally I'm hearing that it's mostly iPads for an hour, and that doesn't seem ideal. The students who are doing just fine, I think there would be an opportunity to let them get further challenges, but that doesn't seem to be part of what we're doing. Maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Okay. So that was just about, whether we are reducing core instruction and whether kids who want extended learning are being catered to as well.
Yeah, great question. I can answer now. Right? Okay. All the rules we're learning together. I'll take the first piece first. Our goal, our ideal, is that all students are getting what they need. Right now, transparently, trimester 1 of a new initiative, we're really, really focused on our students who need more support. That doesn't mean that we do not, in trimester 2 and trimester 3, want to deepen and shift that so that our students can be experiencing acceleration and extension and challenge, because we want all students to be met where they are and to get that appropriate challenge. And to sort of what we talked a little bit about before, when we aim to do a lot of things at once, we typically know from change that we don't do any of it well. So our trimester 1 focus has been getting our structure in place. How do we use this new assessment to drive instruction? What are the key practices that are going to support students? And we certainly don't want first graders on an iPad for 60 minutes a day. That would be really tough. My understanding in talking from principals, because they've been meeting with their grade level teams to get more clear on what's happening for each different subgroup of students during win time. And I definitely want to sort of look in and support that. My understanding from talking with our principals is that the amount of time on personalized learning varies based on grade level. And so in the younger grades, it's typically much more like 15-ish minutes. When the upper grades, it might be longer. But definitely. Thank you. Go ahead, Sarah, if you want to say more.
I do want to add one other thing, and that is that the amount of instruction overall has not changed, because in multi-tiered systems of support, these things were already happening. I think the reality is they were happening at different times in different ways across the day. So now the goal is that we have all the supports, i.e. intervention teachers, ELD teachers, and others being able to target and support that grade level at a specific, unique time. I also do want to say that the opportunity, again, this is a differentiated learning time, meaning that there are opportunities to accelerate the learning for students who are already at and above grade level. Some of the personalized learning, i.e. being on iPads, was already happening. It was just happening during core instruction time. So that is, again, goes back to, I think, some of the curriculum adoption and needs that we have around when we have a more cohesive curriculum, how can we intentionally and strategically use personalized learning on iPads at the right time, in the right way, and how are we also creating more accelerated learning opportunities for kids during this differentiated time, which is honestly what teachers were and have been doing. It's just that we've organized it around a specific schedule. I just want to be clear. I do think that there is, in any situation and in any world, the challenge of fitting everything into the day for multi-subject teachers, for elementary teachers. That's just true. I think that this definitely shifted some things for teachers, and I understand the pain points there. I think as we get a better curriculum, though, some of those pain points will start to diminish because there's going to be more structured and coherent time for the Tier 1 literacy. And as we move forward with math, we're going to have better, more structured time there too. Because I think also the other thing I have heard from teachers is that because our adopted curriculum isn't working the way it should, because it's not the right curriculum, both in math and ELA, teachers have had to make up a lot of things on their own to meet the needs of kids. And so the goal is that that is actually going to start to diminish, and we'll have, again, not that we're trying to take their creativity out of teaching, that's still really important, and actually to do the accelerated learning and interesting, cool projects that kids thrive on, you need to have that creativity. But some of these other things are going to be more organized and easier to access for teachers.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone? I'm not seeing anyone online either. You're going to... Oh, go for it.
Thank you for the presentation. It's just a comment to say that I am really happy to hear we identified an issue that's been an issue for potentially forever, that's an issue in a whole bunch of places, and we're trying to do something different to address that issue. I feel like we're walking our walk and not just talking it, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited about continued feedback, and I'm excited about support for our principals and coaching for our principals. I'm excited about all of the things that are coming in to support and to tweak and to listen and to respond and to keep the cycle going. But I really appreciate and applaud the attempt to come at this issue in a new way.
Thank you.
Great. Any further questions, either from the board or the public? Any comments? I'm not seeing any, so we're going to close this item. Thank you very much, and move on to the approval of the consent calendar. Are there any questions from the board about the consent calendar? And just remember that we are removing B portion. We have tabled that.
I have questions about E and F.
About E and F?
E and F.
Okay. So would you like to have a look at
E is the inter-district open enrollment, and F is the revised physical education and activity policy.
Okay. Now, should we pull those, or do you want to have, we can have those questions?
I'd just like to get the questions answered, or for transparency's sake.
Okay, so Deb, I think, yeah.
Sorry, Deb.
We've got questions from Vice President Mahoney about items E and F on our consent calendar. E is about the intra-district open enrollment policy that we approved in Board Policy Committee, and also the physical education and activity policy.
Great. So I noticed we took out the proximity consideration in school assignment in the inter-district open enrollment plan. Like, what was the thinking? I mean, I think I might know, but I'd rather like why did we make that decision?
You're talking about the proximity to...
Proximity to elementary school,
Just making sure I
was one of the was one of the criteria.
Yeah, I mean, basically the practice has been and has not changed that we ask parents for their first, second, third choice, and we do our best to honor that. But what we're not doing is going in and looking at a family's address and determining are they closer than another family. We are trusting that a family who lives in Albany and wants to be at a particular school has their reasons. And like, for example, they might have another family that is also attending that school who's helping them with childcare, or any number of reasons that a family might have preferences. So instead of us going through and looking at addresses and trying to determine who's closer, we're instead honoring parent choice and assuming that a great deal of that parent choice comes from proximity.
Got it. Yeah, and so it was there, but it's kind of a legacy thing that we didn't do. This is
Right.
Okay, fair enough.
Right, exactly.
And then in F, this may be my own density. I reread the section on the 2-year exemption for kids' sports 3 times, and I just want to make sure what is the use case? I'm trying to figure out what the use case is, and I probably am remembering it wrong, but my recollection is something at the effect of the superintendent can give a 2-year an exemption to physical education for grades 10 through 12 for people who transferred in, who didn't have PE requirements at their prior institution or something like that. Is that
right? I mean, so the way that the language was previously written was very open-ended, and Principal McNally had actually reached out to me to say we need to make this clearer because it leaves a lot to interpretation. And so I think it could have been interpreted the way it was written, that any high schooler who just didn't take PE freshman and sophomore year and they're junior, now they're 16, they could possibly get exempted, which is not the spirit of what the graduation requirements are. But what it is allowing for is there might be a student who transfers in who either came from a school that did not offer PE, or where PE wasn't a requirement, so they didn't take it, and it allows for that exemption to be used in that case. So it's just narrowing in on when that exemption would be used, so it's not open-ended and unclear.
Got it, thank you. And apologies for my density.
No, it's
I read it about 3
one.
times as well, like a good 3 times.
It's an odd one. Yeah, he and I discussed it at length, and even though it's only like 4 sentences. So.
It is. The phrasing is a little confusing. Any other questions from the board about the consent calendar items? Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar? I'm not seeing any in person. If you have anything in our virtual audience, please raise your hand, and I am not seeing anyone. Okay, so are we ready to move to approve the consent calendar with the exception of B, which we are tabling?
I move to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item B.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, so motion carries, thank you. And now we can move on. Ages later. Okay, we are on item 9 now, future board meetings and agenda planning. Anybody have any suggestions for future agenda items? Student trustees, is there anything you'd like to see on a future agenda? Nothing? Trustee Boyd?
A follow-up on the controversial topics discussion and current status.
Go ahead, Vice President.
I'd like to have some sort of study session or something on post-high school. We have a bunch of kids apply to 4-year colleges, some go to 2-year colleges, some enter the workforce and do other things. I don't have a good sense of what does it actually look like today, and of those that go down those particular paths, how successful they are with that, and given that I sort of feel like that's part of our mission. Love to understand that a little bit. So what's the data? What's actually happening with our kids post-high school?
Both great suggestions, thank you. Anyone else? Nope. Okay, not seeing any more, so we are going to now adjourn this portion of the meeting to closed session, and we will be discussing potential litigation, personnel matters, conference with labour negotiator, and public employee performance evaluation, and then we will reconvene to open session. Do we have any public comment on any of those closed session items? I'm not seeing any either here or online, so we will return following closed session. Thank you. Okay. Okay, are we, do we need to wait for Jeremy, or are we good? Okay, great. So we are back, it's 9:59. We have just closed out of closed session. And do we have a motion? We did, oh, sorry, the board took no action in closed session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the meeting at 10 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.